Hi, this is Will, and welcome to Will's Digitals, your home for everything Photoshop and composite art. Today we're talking textures, and we're going to do something a little different. Normally, I've planned out and kind of halfway scripted what I'm going to do. Today, I've got a picture of a gull that we're going to add some textures to, and I just grabbed a couple textures. This one, which looks like some faded blue jeans that got dirty, and this one, which is of a wall in Nepal that's kind of cracking and chipping and that kind of stuff. And we're going to see if we can make a decent gull picture. So I decided to use this picture of the gull because it has so much negative space. And when we're talking about textures, and especially when I'm trying to teach textures, the negative space really helps because it's easy to see the texture. There's nothing else going on. It's just a blue sky. It's almost a gray sky. There's nothing that draws your eye back there, and we're going to be putting some stuff back there. We're not going to overpower our gull, of course, but we are going to make it a little bit more of an interesting picture, I think. So I'm going to, just out of habit, turn my background into a layer. Let's take this first texture. And as you know, I'm sure, to move the texture over the gull, we simply engage the move tool by hitting the V key. And then we click on the texture, go up to the gull tab, let go, and there we have it. I know that the texture is a lot larger than the gull, so we're going to need to resize. So we're going to do Command or Control T, depending on whether you're on a Mac or a PC, which brings up Free Transform. And where are our handles? Well, our handles are hidden because it's so much bigger. So we're going to do Command or Control 0, and that will make it smaller so we can show our handles. Normally, if I'm going to be making something this much smaller than its original size, I'm going to turn it into a smart object in case I need to make it bigger. But it's a texture, so I don't really think there's going to be an issue with that. As you notice, when I pull, it keeps the perspective. If I hold down Shift, it's going to stretch or compress the image. So I'm not worried really about stretching or compressing the image on a texture, so we just did it. The next thing to think about, and it's probably one of the most important things when dealing with textures, is what blend mode are we going to use? And you can have some ideas in your head if you've played with blend modes for a while, but mostly you're just going to go through and see if one of the blend modes looks right for you. So multiply doesn't look bad. Color burn makes the background interesting, but I'm not liking what it's doing to the gull. Darker color, maybe. I'm pretty sure all the lightens are not going to be good because it's just going to blow it out. Overlay is not bad. Soft light. I kind of like hard light. Hard and vivid aren't bad. Let's see, what do we think? I think let's go with hard light. Okay, so now I'm going to hit Command or Control 0 and bring that picture back up to full screen so we can see what we're doing. I like this. I think it's a little strong, and we'll get to that in a minute. We can lower the opacity. But I also notice, and it makes perfect sense, but the texture is also on the bird. A lot of people will tell you the way to get rid of that is to just do a layer mask and paint it out. While that's true, that will work. What's going to happen is you're going to lose the toning and the density that the texture added to the bird. I don't want to lose that. What I'm wanting to get rid of is just the lines part of the texture. I want to keep the coloring as it is. So how are we going to do that? Well, I'll show you. So we're going to hold down Option or Alt and click our texture layer. And then we're going to get a brush. And if we hold down Option or Alt, that gives us our eyedropper tool. And we're just going to select a color from our texture. So now if we go back and Option or Alt and click again, our bird comes back. Now let's look at that opacity. I think it's a little strong. So let's drop that down a little bit and just see what we like here. There, I kind of like that. So now we have our color that we selected. So what we're going to do is create a new layer on top of our texture, and then we're going to clip it. And to clip it, you hold down Alt or Option, and if you hover right between the two layers, you'll get the box with the arrow. If you just click it, now you'll notice layer 2 has the little downward arrow and it's indented, and that means it's clipped to the layer underneath it. What the clipping means is we're only going to be affecting the texture that we're clipped to. This isn't going to have any effect on the gull picture at all. So what we're going to do now is we're just going to paint with the selected color. And what we're painting, or where we're painting rather, we're keeping color, and we're getting rid of the actual texture that we didn't really want. Whoops. Here's a quick lesson for you. Out of habit from using layer masks, I went over on the wing a little far, so I wanted to undo that. So I just reversed, using the X key, my foreground and background color, which is what you would do. However, remember, we're painting now with a foreground color straight onto a layer as opposed to a layer mask. So when I flipped it, I got white, and now I have that big white glob. So let me undo that, and then this is one of the few times the eraser tool actually comes in handy. And you can see as I erase, you can see the texture come back. And go right down this wing, and right over the head. I'm not going to worry about the beak. Okay, so now as you can see, we have our texture and we have our gull, but we've removed the texture from the gull, but left the brightness from the texture that it was changing in the gull. So that looks pretty good, I think. The texture that we just used right here, you notice, was very close in color to the gray-blue background. It was at least in the same family. However, our Nepalese wall is definitely not in the same family. This is a lot of reds and oranges, but we're going to see what we can do anyway. So let's take this, and again, we just use our move tool, drag up to the gull tab, and let go. Again, we need to free transform, so Command or Control T, and so we can see the handles, Command 0, and we're going to bring this down to size a little bit. All right, and I don't want that thing up in the corner. I don't like that. Okay. So now let's go through, and we're going to Command 0 so that we have fill the screen again. And let's see if we can find a blend mode we like. Darken, multiply. Again, with this picture, I don't think the light ones are going to do much. Whoops. Overlay, soft light. I don't know. I'm torn between darken, multiply, and overlay. And I think I'm going to go for overlay, and let's just see what happens here. So we're going to do what we did. As you can tell in this one, it's very apparent that our gull has texture on its wings and every place, basically. And so we're going to get rid of that. And if you recall, we're going to Option or Alt and click on the layer. And then we're going to get our brush tool. By the way, I'll point out, you notice I do this step before I lower the opacity. And that's because I'm selecting a color. And when I'm selecting a color, I want it to be at 100% opacity. Let's get our brush tool. There's our eyedropper. Let's try that. Okay, now we're going to hold down our Option or our Alt key again. Click the eyeball on our layer, and that'll bring everything back. And now we create our new layer by clicking the plus sign here in the toolbar. And then we're going to hold down Option or Alt, and we're going to do our clipping mask. There we go. And now, and notice I painted 100%. So we're going to just start painting. And try to be a little more careful than I was last time. I'm not using a graphics tablet to do this. I'm using a mouse, which is somewhat of a challenge. Make it a little bit smaller by using the left bracket key. Get out here on these wingtips. I'm not going to be super careful with this just for demonstration purposes, but let's try to get it pretty good. Okay, I do think we need to bring up the eraser tool. There's a sentence I never thought I'd say. I actually had a video I did, I think it was the top 10 mistakes beginners make with Photoshop, and one of them was the eraser tool, using it. And this is really the only time that I find a use for the eraser. Otherwise, if it wasn't for this, I'd say they should just get rid of the eraser tool. I like that, but that is very clearly a chipping wall, and it looks like a gull flying into a chipping wall, and that's not what we want. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go down to our layer, and let's turn it into a smart object, and let's add a little bit of blur. Let's see, blur. Let's do motion blur. Not enough. Just going to keep going up a little bit until I kind of like what I see. Okay, there we go. I think that looks good. I want to just kind of adjust the toning of the whole thing real quick. So I'm going to go to the curves adjustment layer. And let's see here. Darker, lighter. You know what I'm noticing? Let's try this. And I'm not going to do it as much as we did to the layer we just worked on, but I'm going to convert our other texture into a smart object, and we're going to do some more blur. I think this one I'm going to try Gaussian, and just the least little bit, because if you notice I put it down here, I just, the corners are bugging me. Just the least little bit. There we go. I like that, but let's go back to the curves layer. Bring that up just a little bit. There, I think that looks pretty good. Let's go ahead and finish off like we normally do. Make this an actual picture. I'll post it on the website. So what I want to do now to finish this out, what I would normally do is I would use the camera raw filter. But I don't want to use the camera raw filter on the curves layer or any of this. What I need to do is I need to get basically a blended version of the picture. So on a Mac, it's going to be Shift, Option, Command, E. And on a PC, it's going to be Shift, Control, Alt, E. And what that does is it takes all the visible layers underneath and puts it into one layer. So it's almost like we exported this to, say, a JPEG, the whole thing, and then we brought it back in and placed that layer on top. And so what we've done here, notice now if I turn these on and off, it doesn't do any good because we have this layer in normal blend mode. And if you want to, you could actually change the blend mode, but I'm not going to for this. But if you did need to go back, all you have to do is turn off that layer we created, go back and do whatever you needed to do. You'll notice now if let's do one more. There we go. Now you can see with that top layer turned off, if I begin turning off layers, that it actually works. But we're going to place that back on top. I want to be able to edit it just in case. I'm going to convert that top layer to a smart object, and we're going to go to Filter, the Camera Raw filter. Let's start here with light. I tell you what, I've actually learned something new in the past couple days, and let's just try it. Profiles. These are things in Camera Raw that are like presets. And let's just see if anything looks good or gives me any ideas. That's not bad. I'm going for kind of an artistic, painterly look here, so no, not really seeing anything there. Let's try the moderns. I think I kind of like that. But now let's go back and let's make a few little tweaks here. I want to bring the contrast up a little bit. And let's see about exposure. I think this exposure is pretty good. I want to bring up the blacks a little bit just because of his little face. Let's try to bring up the shadows as well. It's just, I don't think it's going to come out. Color, let's add a little bit of blue back into it. There we go. A little bit of vibrance. We'll go with the effects. We've got plenty of texture. I don't think I want to add any more, but add some clarity. There we go. Now, dehaze is interesting, especially when you're not dealing with anything that's hazy. This picture is not hazy, but let's go ahead and just, okay. And if we take it down the other way. So sometimes you can get a neat effect just by playing with dehaze, even if something isn't hazy. We'll leave a little bit of that on. And I think this might look good with a vignette to kind of call attention to the bird in the middle. There we go. Now, I use the curves outside of Camera Raw, and I don't do much of the color mixing. Let's see with, whoops, detail. Give it a little bit of sharpening. And then optics. I've discovered this, and I actually kind of like it. Oh, wrong way. Optics kind of changes the, you can see it looks like it's it's being pushed down now, or this way it looks like it's being puffed up. For this picture, I kind of like it puffed up because it fills the screen more with the gull. And I like that. Click OK. There's our picture. And if you saw my video on custom brushes, I showed you how to do a custom signature brush. And that's what I have here. This is not my signature because nobody can read my writing. I think I should have been a doctor just because I don't have writing that's legible. So I had one of those services make me a signature for signing things. And I like it. So you pick out a color, and I actually kind of like that pink color we've already got chosen in the foreground. And I'm just going to click on it there. And there we go. I think this looks good. So I think that's going to do it for today. We learned a lot about textures, a lot of little secrets about them, and how to finish off an image. Hope this is helpful. If it was, if you're enjoying what you're seeing, please like, subscribe, and comment. If there's something you'd like me to cover in Photoshop or dealing with composite art, just drop your idea in the comments, and we'll see what we can do. Thanks a lot. We'll see you next time.